Ladies and gentlemen, it's the Ron Edwards American Experience Talk Show, where our unalienable rights are celebrated.
Well, let's open up the phone lines with Janice Daniels. She is here to converse with us about the subjects at hand.
And the communists have been trying to destroy the American Republic for centuries, if not the millennia. So we're going to win as long as the American Republic is standing and is understood. And therein lies the rub. The people need to understand what the American Republic represents. This business about this being a democracy is a part of the fake news. We are not a democracy where 51% of the people get to decide what happens to 100% of us. This is a representative republic where we choose our representatives, and in a free and fair election scenario, we would get the kind of men and women who would honor their oaths. And they don't take an oath to make sure their community gets benefits from the government. They take an oath to protect and defend the Constitution of the United States of America. And that is so important. Ron, I think what's going on right now, it like seems like a game of Clue. You know, we've got a shooter named Thomas Crooks at the crime scene with the Keystone Cops. We've got Director Cheadle confusing Congress with a cover-up. We have fumbling, bumbling Biden in the bathroom with a bedpan, and we have crackling Kamala visiting the Knesset with a knife. It's like a game. It's so unusual. We have Congress cowering in the corner, colluding with the communists. And you know what the concern that I have the most is that we have great men who are being kowtowed by lesser men who are in authority in our law enforcement community, who are misled into thinking that their job is to protect the state instead of protecting the Constitution. So you see, we've got it all mixed up, and that's because of the hamster wheel of injustice that I've talked about before, where our judiciary instead of meting out justice to the vulnerable citizenry, they make deluded, misdirected decisions that pad the pockets of attorneys and court administrators. Again, these are all things that can and will be restored once we understand the American Republic. And quite frankly, there's a couple of court decisions that have come out in the past maybe 10, 15 years or so that really show that at least the Supreme Court has a clue about what our American Republic and our Constitution means.
The state Supreme Court has given protection to a school district that was being sued for administering coronavirus vaccines to a young child, despite the parents' explicit instructions against it. This happened in Vermont. The Supreme Court there ruled in favor of the Wyndham Southeast School District. And so they said basically parental rights be damned and school rights supersede the parent.
That's absolutely wrong. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is those parents are going to have to appeal the case to a higher court. And again, that puts them on the hamster wheel of injustice where their pockets are emptied of their funds. But ultimately, when they reach the higher court, they ought to reverse that decision because our country is based upon individual rights, not group rights, not rights for the school board. I don't, in fact, see the school board anywhere in our Constitution at all until you get to some diluted versions of the Constitution that we the people have allowed our legislators to dream up, giving themselves more power than what they ought to have in a constitutionally sound republic. And, you know, the great thing, Ron, is that with the Internet, if the communication modes are so readily available at our fingertips to learn the truth, to expose the truth, and to tell the truth. And I'm refreshed by that. I'll tell you, that makes me very happy. Yes, we are in a very dangerous point in history, but then anytime a wounded dog is pushed into the corner, he gets more vicious. So that's what we're up against. The communists are getting more vicious, but we are winning because we have God on our side. God is in authority, and God is just for all.
Yes, he is. And that's the one thing that we do have in our favor. But right now, I'm a bit concerned when it comes to our Supreme Court.
We need a strong Supreme Court, and we have one right now. I really like some of their decisions, even if the fake news media misinterprets and bashes them. For example, this case, I don't know if you followed this case with Judge Cannon down in Florida, the indictment against President Trump for mishandling executive documents.
Yes.
She actually decided that the special counsel Jack Smith's appointment violated the Appointments Clause of the United States Constitution. It's a 93-page decision. It is so well written, Ron. I'm through about 75 pages of it, and I'm making notes so that I can understand all of the nuances of her decision, because in my opinion, it could have been adjudged with about 5 pages of common sense language, but she needs to make sure that there are no holes in her decision that other courts can then pick apart and violate, because our court system is packed with communists and communist leading supporters and sympathizers. So we have a big job to correct that as well. But there is light at the end of the tunnel, and it's not a train coming at us.
Yeah, that's true. I really believe you, despite some of the things that I do see in our great country. And I say that we're being lorded over by people who despise us. What say you, Janice?
Well, you're not exaggerating when we see that the Democrat Party doesn't honor their own primary election, and they install Kamala Harris as their new presidential candidate. And I'd like to add my little Kamala Harris story to the mix. There's all kinds of stuff going around with her radical positions, not just radical, because radical can be good. I'm radical, you're radical, but we're radical on the side of good. She's radical on the side of evil. And I don't know if you remember one particular instance where you and I and Pastor Yule and a bunch of people, 50 to 100 people, stood outside Cobo Hall when there's the NAACP convention. And on May 5th of 2019, Kamala Harris was the keynote speaker.
Yep.
And the Detroit News wrote an article where she said, she was quoted as saying, "Black infants are twice as likely to die than other babies." Well, now, isn't that a general kind of statement and kind of misleading? Because I was wondering if maybe was she talking about all the abortions that take place on Black infants? No. She was talking about all the babies in Detroit or in America who are dying of poverty. Now, Ron, I don't know, maybe I'm missing something, but I don't remember hearing a lot of stories about Black babies dying from poverty in America. I do know of stories of Black babies dying because of abortion, because of the murder of abortion. And in fact, Dr. Clenard Childress, I believe his name is, Childress Jr., he's the founder of BlackGenocide.org.
Yeah.
He said the most dangerous place for the African American is the womb.
Yep.
But you
I
see,
remember that.
Kamala supports abortion. How dare her? Because what that is she supports child sacrifice. And maybe we ought to start calling abortion child sacrifice rather than even murder.
Actually, you're really onto something when you say sacrifice, because originally abortions, when they happened back during the early Israel days, I'm talking about Old Testament times, they sacrificed their babies by the thousands, sometimes per day, to Molech.
That's
and
right.
to me and to some others, this abortion industry today is basically a modern day sacrificial practice to Molech and other evil gods and practices. And every time you shed this innocent blood, you are contributing to that factor if you're looking at it from a spiritual angle. But you know where the Black population is shrinking today, Janice? Literally shrinking, and they have plenty of food to eat? Harlem.
Where's that?
Harlem. So many
I'm
babies
not
are killed
surprised.
every year by these so-called mothers, okay?
Yep.
That the Black population, the death rate, the birth rate is lower than the death rate, which is exacerbated by the abortion rates. That's Harlem.
Exactly right. So if a black baby survives birth out of the womb, they then have to be faced with the murder on the streets, which is perpetrated by the very communists that are causing all the havoc in our country. And you know what? Only time is going to tell if Trump is like the Jedi Master and J.D. Vance is his Padawan learner, and they help the people completely reclaim the Republic as they did in Star Wars, or we're going to subject our children to that 1,000 years of darkness that President Reagan warned us would happen if the enemies of liberty succeed in their diabolical plans. And I pray that the American Republic stands.
Well, you know, I hate to say this, Janice, but to a certain degree, they've already achieved their diabolical plans. And at the present level of evil, when it comes to perversion, I'm talking about the perversion side of evil, this present level is probably at the same level that the Byzantine Empire acquired and the Roman Empire acquired at their time of collapse. So if there is not the miracle intervention of God, or through God, the installation of true leaders in this country, and not just President Trump and Vice President Vance, but I mean especially the local levels, and if there's not a true reawakening in the church, which has been probably one of the most failing elements of our society, we will enter a communist dark age.
America is different. America, to me, is the one nation that will pass through the dependency right through bondage and go back to great spiritual awakening that brings the courage that is necessary to restore liberty. I believe America is the only country that can do it, but you are absolutely right. We can't do it without the help of God.
Yeah, I was going to say the one difference between the United States and those other entities, the Byzantine and the Roman Empire and even Venezuela, America still has a huge, huge number of true Christians who are to this very day calling out to God. We just passed through the month of July in which the state of Tennessee, the governor of that state, called 30 days of prayer through the month of July, and they passed through that. And, you know, if more governors would do that, I think it would positively impact this country. I believe that Tennessee is going to be a very blessed segment of this country going forward, because God honors those kinds of things. When your leaders humble themselves and pray and then request the people to pray like that, he has a history of honoring those societies and turning things around and healing their land, as it says in his word. What say you?
Well, I say that Tennessee has long been a beacon of liberty for the United States. It was back in 1886 that in fact, it was back in 71 when the Tennessee State Supreme Court defined the American Republic in a case called Pope versus Pfeiffer. 16 years later, in 1886, the United States Supreme Court reaffirmed that case, but they assigned words to what the republic stands for, such as de facto and de jure. You cannot have a de facto office. If an office is not created in accordance with the Constitution, that would make it de jure. You cannot have an office. And if a person is installed in an office that is de facto, they are a usurper. They cannot stand. And in fact, that's exactly what case federal Florida court Justice Cannon relied upon. She cited Norton versus Shelby County, Tennessee, 1886. So my hat's off to Tennessee, the state of Tennessee, for a long, long time. My hat's been off to Tennessee for a long, long time.
Janice, so real quick, let folks know what you're involved in, what you're doing.
Well, I'm part of a group called Magnificent Republic, and that was a comment that President Trump made in a speech that he gave, I think, in 2019. He called this a magnificent republic. We're creating a website. We're going to start, having a method to get a hold of us, to discuss the kinds of things that we discuss. And we like court cases, as I say, Norton versus Shelby County, Tennessee, 1886. The citation is 118 U.S. 425. It's one of the big ones that we believe will help us reestablish the republic.
Thank you so much, Janice. And as always, it's fun and it's very informative when you show up.